Today, the hostility between Washington and Tehran plays out on a razor's edge. It is a quiet, perpetual conflict fought with uranium centrifuges, precision drones, and silent incursions into civilian cyber networks. This state of mutual suspicion is so entrenched, it feels like an absolute certainty of global politics. Yet the deep animosity defining this relationship is a relatively modern invention. To find the origin of this rivalry, we have to look past the modern era of missile defense systems and proxy wars, winding the clock back 70 years. In the post-war decades, the battleground between these two nations was strictly economic, fought over resources buried deep beneath the desert floor. Following World War II, Iran held one of the most critical geopolitical assets on Earth, massive, untapped reservoirs of crude oil. Western economies relied heavily on this energy to fuel their industrial booms. Then inside Iran, a powerful political movement was gaining momentum, demanding that these highly lucrative, foreign-controlled refineries be nationalized for the benefit of the local population. To secure Western access, the United States and Britain backed Iran's monarch, Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. With foreign intelligence guaranteeing his grip on power, the Shah ensured that Western petroleum interests continued uninterrupted. Flooded with historic levels of oil revenue, the Shah initiated a massive modernization campaign. Urban centers transformed quickly, complete with new infrastructure, neon-lit commercial districts, and heavy investments in Western military hardware. Yet outside the immediate radius of the urban elite, the reality was stark. The vast majority of the population remained locked in rural poverty, entirely cut off from the nation's soaring oil-funded wealth. Concentrating decades of extreme wealth into the hands of a foreign-backed ruling class created a profound disconnect between the state and its citizens. This systemic inequality laid the exact groundwork needed for a nationwide uprising. The growing frustration of the Iranian underclass found a focal point in an exiled cleric, Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. He offered a strict populist religious vision that directly opposed the secular, Western-backed excess of the Shah's regime. By 1978, the economic resentment boiled over. Millions of citizens paralyzed the country with rolling strikes and massive street protests, marching under the banner of Khomeini's religious doctrine. The scale of the civil disobedience proved insurmountable. The Shah fled the country in early 1979, leaving Khomeini to completely dismantle the monarchy and structure the nation into a hardline Islamic republic. The breaking point for the international community arrived in November. Fearing American intervention to reinstate the Shah, radicalized students breached the gates of the United States Embassy in Tehran, taking 52 Americans hostage. The ensuing standoff lasted 444 days. The administration of U.S. President Jimmy Carter severed all diplomatic ties and initiated a sweeping program of economic sanctions designed to completely isolate the new Iranian government from the global financial system. The embassy siege cemented a permanent fracture. The dispute over resource control had fully mutated into a rigid ideological war. In the decades following the revolution, that hostility found a new, high-stakes focal point. Iran aggressively expanded its domestic nuclear infrastructure, building sophisticated enrichment facilities deep underground. Suspecting a covert weapons program, the international community responded with heightened surveillance. The relationship devolved into a tense cycle of surprise inspections, diplomatic breakdowns, and increasingly severe economic penalties. Constrained globally, Iran projected its power regionally. The state began financing, training, and arming a complex network of proxy militias across neighboring states, effectively surrounding U.S. allies and military outposts. The chief architect of this asymmetrical strategy was General Qasem Soleimani. For 2 decades, he commanded Iran's elite Quds force, quietly orchestrating foreign operations that systematically checked American influence from Baghdad to Beirut. In January 2020, an American drone strike assassinated Soleimani outside Baghdad airport. The targeted killing brought both nations to the absolute brink of open warfare. What began over petroleum exports has metastasized into a sprawling, highly volatile shadow war fought to control the balance of power across the entire region. But away from the nuclear negotiations and military posturing, the consequences of this conflict are absorbed primarily by ordinary citizens. Successive waves of extreme international sanctions have deliberately restricted Iran's ability to trade, sell oil, or access global banking, effectively suffocating the local economy. Looking at this direct comparison of banknotes, the sheer volume of rial required to match a single US dollar illustrates a catastrophic devaluation. Savings have evaporated, pushing basic necessities and medicine out of reach for millions of working-class families. Beyond the financial ruin, there is a distinct psychological weight to living inside a geopolitical crosshair. Entire generations have grown up under the constant anxiety that the shadow war could suddenly ignite into a full-scale military invasion. For 70 years, every aggressive action by Washington or Tehran has been met with devastating retaliation, locking both nations in an escalating cycle of distrust. Until the political frameworks that demand this rivalry are dismantled, millions of innocent people remain caught in the middle. The standoff persists, and the final chapter of this conflict is yet to be written.